Hey everyone, it's Ryan with This Smart House, and on today's episode we're going to take a look at a new robot vacuum cleaner brand. Now the brand reached out to me about a month ago to take a look at their new vacuum and self-emptying station. Now I get a lot of these requests and I don't typically respond to all of them. However, this vacuum had a couple of features that were very intriguing. First is the fact that it's a self-emptying robotic vacuum, which is super convenient. And the second is the fact that it uses camera-based navigation versus something like LiDAR. I was intrigued to see how this worked and if it was actually effective in your house. So today, let's take a look at the Yeedi Vac Max and its self-emptying station. So let's start with the Vac Max. Like most vacuums on the market, it has the capability of both vacuuming and mopping, even at the same time. So the vacuum can operate in 3 different strength modes. According to the manufacturer, the quiet mode is about 600 pascals, the high mode is 1200 pascals, and the max mode is 2000 pascals of suction. So the quiet mode is actually very quiet, and it seems powerful enough to pick up most dust bunnies and pieces of cereal strewn about the room. But when the vacuum moves over to the carpet, it automatically kicks into max mode. If you want to, you can actually set it to run in max mode the whole time if you have a small enough floor and if you don't mind the noise. Now, the reason this robot can change so easily into max mode when it reaches a carpeted surface is because it has a downward facing carpet sensor. Now this is the first that I've seen for a robot like this. There's actually a dedicated sensor that senses when it runs over into carpet and changes those modes on the vacuum. Now, the dustbin has a capacity of about 450 milliliters, which is relatively small in this market, but not that much smaller than some of the competitions like Roborock. This won't be much of an issue if you're using the self-emptying station because it will clean this out automatically every time it docks. Now, integrated into the dustbin is the built-in HEPA filter, which is cleanable and replaceable, and that is tracked within the application. It will show you the lifespan expectancy of all of the accessories on the robot. If needed, you can manually empty the bin just by clicking the red button and opening it up. And then you'll notice at the bottom, these little flaps, which are for the self-emptying station, which we'll get to later. Also included is a handy little cleaning brush for cleaning extra dust off the sensors and also cutting hair, which in my house is very helpful. Now, as far as brushes go, it has a standard edge brush on the front corner opposite of the carpet sensor. And then it has a hybrid main brush, which is both bristles and a squeegee, which is good for both hard surfaces and carpets. On the most expensive robots, you're going to find a LiDAR-based system that allows for accurate navigation in your house. Now, this is the first robot I've seen that uses a camera instead of that. That means it can give you some of the more advanced navigation features, but at a lower price point. Now, obviously, having an upward-facing camera on a robot running around your house may bring in some privacy concerns, and I've asked the company for some clarification on if these images are processed on board the robot or if they are transmitted to the cloud. Now, because this has vision-based navigation, it allows the robot to move in straight lines throughout the house. So unlike some of the older Roombas, it doesn't just bumble around running into random objects. It uses the camera to make a lower resolution map of your house. This allows you to sort of make out some of the features in a room, just shows them as blocks on a screen. So again, this is not going to give you the same detailed as a LiDAR-based robot, but it does allow you to see some large objects in your room and then draw boundaries around them. Because of the low resolution of the map, it does make drawing boundaries more difficult and sort of a guess and check game. This chair here in the corner is notorious for scratching up robot vacuums because there's a piece of a spring that sticks down. One of the first things I do when I test a robot is, once it maps, is I find that chair and I block it off in the app so it doesn't go under it. Now this is much more difficult to do in the Yeedi app because of the low resolution of the map. So on the subject of no mop zones, let's take a look at the mopping features of this robot. Now it comes with a 240 milliliter clean water tank, which is fairly small on the market. So I really find this can only do my first floor one time and have to refill it. Where like on my Roborock, I can fill it up every 2 or 3 times without problem. Now this bin can actually stay secured into the robot at all times without it triggering into mop mode. So the way that you activate mop mode is by actually attaching the mopping plate with a mop to it onto the clean water tank. So the cool thing about this is you can actually remove the clean water tank while it's sitting on the dock, attach the mopping plate, and then put it back on the robot without having to take it off the dock. The one problem I have is this plate is actually difficult to remove. You have to get like a butter knife or something and slide it in here to pop these off. And if this is attached, it will run in mop mode. Now included in the box is a reusable washable mop, which just slides onto the bracket and is stuck on with Velcro. Also included are 5 disposable mopping cloths in case you have a quick mess, you want to just run it and then throw it away. Now all those attached to the mopping plate securely with both Velcro and a loop. So the robot has the option of both vacuuming and mopping at the same time. You can disable the vacuum feature in mop mode if you want to. I don't really see the use case for this. I guess maybe if you're gonna run this in the middle of the night and you don't wanna have any vacuum noises, it would just be the sound of the robot running over the ground, dragging the mop. So the robot has 4 levels of intensity of water dispensing. Now you can change these on the fly while the robot's running or before you run a mopping job. I find it on my engineered wood floor, I have to run it at level 4 to get a full coverage without streaking. One nice feature is it uses the carpet detector when mopping to avoid actually mopping on your carpet. When it detects a carpet edge, so that way it doesn't run the mop pad over the edge of your carpet, which is pretty nice. All right, so finally, on our list of features, let's take a look at the self-emptying station. Now this is available as an optional add-on, or you can buy the larger pack that includes it. This will replace the built-in charging dock and allows you to automatically empty the vacuum every time it charges. So this uses a clever little system. Instead of the rear port you find on some other vacuums, it actually removes the debris from the bottom, which is really nice for grabbing small sediment like dust or dirt, but I find it runs into problems with things like hair. So if you have either pets or people that shed quite a bit, you might run into some clogging issues during self-empty. I actually have to take the dustbin out every 2 or 3 runs to remove a clog of dog or person hair. So this is caused by those 2 smaller doors found on the bottom of the dustbin versus a larger rear-mounted door. Now it does come with a handy little ramp just in case you have thicker carpet and your robot struggles to get up on the dock. Unlike some docks, the entire robot comes off the ground and is sort of like a landing pad for the robot. So effectively how this works is there's a second vacuum cleaner inside of the station. So once the robot comes back to dock, it has an announcement that it's starting to empty.
Emptying the dustbin.
So the vacuum built into the station is quite a bit louder than the one on the robot, so just be aware of that. Now, your dust and dirt is sucked up into these disposable bags that they claim last about 30 days of cleaning. I'd like to have seen a reusable bin here, but I understand probably why. It's cheaper and easier just to have a bag. Plus, if you have a bin, you have to have filters you have to change. All right, there we go. We've seen all the features of the vacuum hardware, so let's jump into the application and we'll see what's available for us in there. So the Yeedi app has most of the features that you would expect from a robotic vacuum. Now, we'll say they've done a pretty good job on this application. It doesn't have a lot of English translation errors and is pretty user-friendly. So right when you open the application, you can select which robot you want to work with. You can put multiple robots in the same app. If you click the 3 dots in the corner, you can actually rename the robot or remove it from the application. Now, we've named our robot Eva 2 in memory of Eva 1, our old Roomba that our twins broke a few years ago. And of course, this is named after the robot from WALL-E. Now, if we click on the robot, we'll be taken to the main page where we'll see most of our options available by scrolling down. Now, one trick I found is if you click this blue blob in the corner, it will actually have the robot speak and tell you where it is in the house, which is nice if you lose it under a table or a couch. So the first options here are to change the cleaning modes. By default, it's in auto, which will just go ahead and clean the entire floor. You can also select area or custom. If you select area, you can select one of the areas that the robot automatically determines when it does its first mapping run. You can click on any one of these areas and then tell it to clean it, and the robot will go there and clean. You can also select custom, which allows you to draw a bounding box around a particular area and have the robot go clean that. Now, if you have the robot on the self-emptying dock, you can press this button here, which will have it automatically run the self-emptying cycle. Be aware there's no option to cancel. I did this accidentally at 5 a.m. this morning and my family was not happy. You can also hit the play button here to go ahead and start cleaning, and you can send the robot back to recharge all from this menu. So pressing the map management button will take you into the map editor. Now, one big disadvantage I see is you can't actually edit the existing map areas. On most vacuum cleaners, you can go in and subdivide areas into smaller ones, but for some reason on the Yeedi, you can only use the predefined zones that it finds when it does its mapping run. Now, hopefully this is a feature they fix in the near future. Now, in the map management, you can take any of these zones and rename them. You can also add no-go zones, which will prevent the robot from entering that area during vacuum or mopping, or you can select certain zones that you do not want it to mop at all, but it will still vacuum during vacuum mode. So back out in the main menu, the next section down lets you see the history of cleaning for the robot. It'll also let you know of any times it gets stuck. Now, below the history section is the vacuum strength. Now, you can either set this at the beginning or while the robot is running. Then below that, lets you go into the scheduling menu. This lets you set multiple schedules for the vacuum to run. You can set a time of the day and have it either run every day, weekends, or weekdays only. I have mine set to run at 8 a.m. every day. That's usually the time that we leave to take the twins to school, and it gives the robot enough time to clean up before we get back. So next, you can select both the language and the volume at which the robot speaks. You can set this to 0 if you want to mute the robot. Now, finally on this main page is your cleaning preferences. This is where you can set some of the features in the robot and enable and disable them for your particular setup. This is where you'll find things like resume cleaning, where if the robot runs low on batteries during a cleaning of your floor and it hasn't finished, it'll return to the dock, charge, and then resume right from where it left off. You can set a do not disturb time, which will make the robot not automatically run during these hours, and also disables the voice output. The auto empty setting will allow you, if you have the self-emptying station, to have it where when the vacuum docks, it automatically empties. And finally, an option to change the order in which the vacuum runs. Now in this menu, you can tell it which zone you want to start with in auto cleaning mode. So you click the three dots, it takes you into the advanced options menu, which allows you to rename the robot, lets you see network information, firmware information, update the firmware, and also shows you the status of your consumables, like your brushes and your filters, and lets you know when it's time to replace them. Now, of course, this robot supports both Alexa and Google Assistant for voice commands, and you would do this not in the Yeedi app, but in the Voice Assistant app. So for example, on my Google Assistant, I set this up in the Home app. So of course, we're a Google house, and we have Google Assistants all throughout the house. Now this is super convenient if you want to quickly run the robot by just sending a quick voice command. All right, so there you go. That's the overlook of all the features in the application. So let's quickly sum up everything. Now, overall, I'm very impressed with this robot. At its current price point, which is running around $289 for just the vacuum itself, it's a quite capable vacuum, even if it doesn't have LiDAR on board. Of course, the camera navigation's a little wonky, and it doesn't give you that high level of resolution that I typically like to see from my robot vacuum apps, so I can really detailed set boundaries and no-go zones. But at least it's something. It's better than some robots that don't have any navigation features whatsoever. Now this vacuum runs very quietly, and it's pretty much unobtrusive for us. Now, another feature of the robot that I really like is the fact that it doesn't seem to really get stuck. I've tested some other robots that either get stuck under some of my benches, or I have a rug here in the living room which is notorious for robots getting stuck on because it sucks up the fibers from the rug and it thinks it's jammed. So the Yeedi has no problem with that rug or any of the other rugs in my house. Now when it comes to self-emptying station, it is an additional adder at $179, but if you live in a house where you don't have a lot of pet hair, I think it's a good option because you can just set it and forget it. You don't have to worry about cleaning it out daily. If you do have dogs or cats that shed or people with long hair, you may find yourself having to actually empty that more often, which sort of renders the self-emptying station moot. But it's entirely up to your use case. Now on that subject, there are some things missing from this robot. One of the glaring things is any sort of API or integration outside of Google or Alexa. I really would like to see an open API or at least some custom written integrations for things like Home Assistant. It's super nice to be able to use Home Assistant to schedule and run your robots, and also be able to pick out things like your consumable life expectancy, and on some robots, even pull the map in. I'd really like to see this feature added, and I have requested it from the company. Another thing that I don't really like is the size of those doors on the dustbin. As I just talked about it, it seems to clog up quite a bit, and if you do have a lot of hair in your house, it's gonna cause problems. And finally, the camera navigation isn't very good. It only really gives you these large blocky areas in your house. So if that's useful to you, you can do some trial and error to figure out areas you don't want the robot to go to. Obviously, you're hopefully not gonna be changing your house that often. So once you get it figured out, it's kind of set it and forget it, but it would be nice to have a little bit higher resolution coming from those cameras. Plus the potential privacy concerns I'd like to see addressed. So, and then those other nitpicky things like a bin instead of a bag for the self-emptying station, and the ability to go ahead and cut up the existing rooms in the app. But overall, I think this is a great robot. I think it's a good competitor for things like iRobots or Roborox, and it hits a nice sweet spot to be able to get things like a self-emptying station, all for around $500. So if you're interested in picking up one of these, I have links in the description below. I keep the description up to date when sales come around, so if there is a sale going on, you can find links to it in my description, which if you're watching this video on release day, there's actually a sale going on right now this weekend. Thank you again for getting this far in the video. I really appreciate it. If this was helpful, please give the video a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see my other robotic vacuum videos, you can click on this playlist right here. And if you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe to the channel by clicking our logo right here. I've got more vacuum reviews coming up and other great content. Thanks again, I'll see you in the next video.